And then it was announced back in April that the RFU weren't going to be including Firwood Waterloo and Richmond in the Premier 15s competition moving forwards. Obviously, you had played at the club for a few years, and they were kind of the club that almost gave you the platform to then be selected for the international scene. So I'm sure you have kind of emotions attached to that. And what were your reactions when that news came through?
Yeah, I mean, a really tough time to kind of get that news as well. I think, there was such mixed feelings. I think initially, obviously, really disappointed, and no matter what, and no matter what anyone says, it was a surprise. You almost, yeah, no matter what kind of the situation, I don't think anyone was kind of fully prepared for the fact that we weren't going to be in the Premiership anymore. I think there was certainly a little part of me that completely understands it. If we're trying to compete against the giants of Harlequins and of your Saracens and your Wasps, and the facilities and the support and everything that they have, that's just really, really difficult to compete against. And then throw into the fact that we couldn't end the season, we couldn't finish off the last few games, we couldn't have an end of season. There's loads of those girls that I still haven't even seen since March or April time. So yeah, a bit of a crazy period of time, definitely. And look, absolutely, Firwood definitely gave me that platform. I think I'd only been playing rugby for a year and a half before I joined Firwood Waterloo. And Waterloo were playing Championship 1, and they were like 2 or 3 leagues above what I had started playing at. So it was a baptism of fire straight away. But a really good setup. And we had our coach then, Steph Field, and she was fantastic and taught me loads. And then obviously after kind of a year and a bit being with Waterloo, we got into the Premiership, and we then had a different coach, different support staff every single year for 3 years. And to have, if nothing else, to have a different head coach each year, that's really difficult to build momentum and to put certain systems in place. And you can kind of see now with Sharks, where we're playing against the likes of your Saris, your Quins, even your Loughboroughs, who've been playing for 3 years, putting systems and strategies in place for a number of years now, and are now building, where with Sharks we're building them from scratch, and you can really just tell kind of the differences with that. So I think we were always going to be a little bit at a disadvantage there with Firwood Waterloo. But look, they've an incredible club. You've got the likes of Jill Burns there, who's a phenomenal woman and famous in women's rugby, and will always be a Firwood Waterloo girl at heart. She's a one club woman, as she always describes herself. And I think hopefully they'll do well. I was about to say they'll do well in the Championship, but sure, haven't the RFU now announced that there's no rugby this year, which is just understandable, but a real pity for the community.
Yeah, such an unbelievably odd time, and you can only wish them well in terms of Firwood Waterloo and Richmond, who have been such a powerhouse of the women's game, and over the years. So how has it been joining Sale Sharks? And obviously they're a Northwest club. They're in the area that you were in already. I know that you worked as a performance nutritionist for British Cycling, so you were in the Manchester area. But what was behind your decision to move to Sale?
Yeah, no, I suppose in terms of how it's going, it's brilliant. Like it's an unbelievable setup, and full credit to Sale Sharks as a club. They have left no stone unturned in terms of getting the women's team up and running, and putting everything in place that we need to thrive, which is great. When I describe it to kind of other people kind of outside of rugby or my other rugby friends, I put it very, very similar to the Irish setup in terms of the facilities, the support we have, the programming, and even things like the systems and the plays that we have in place as well. It's really similar to that, which is an amazing environment to be part of. I love being part of the Irish environment, but that potentially was something that had been lacking in Firwood Waterloo. So yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, the facilities at Carrington are unreal. The gym there is brilliant. Obviously all the pitches and the access and everything is great. So I definitely feel like I'm thriving in the environment. And I know there's a lot of girls that even in a few months have massively improved in terms of their rugby, in terms of their strength and conditioning, and even just being part of a system with players like Katie Daly McLean. You can just tell their rugby knowledge and their and their playing skills and ability have massively taken a step up.
That's amazing. That's something you strive for. That's what clubs are all about nowadays, aren't they? Like, being integrated to the same team, one club, that sort of thing. So okay, and just moving on to your season so far, you've obviously had a bit of a baptism of fire in terms of playing Loughborough, then Saracens. I know you've got Harlequins coming up. Yeah, it's been a challenging start. No wins yet, but do you feel that there's that, like you were saying, it's a new club. You haven't had a time to establish your systems yet, your relationships with your teammates really, or your coach. So I mean, yeah, how's it been the first couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, look, absolutely. And I think we're realistic about the start of the season. 3 really tough games to begin with. Definitely in Loughborough and Saracens, and then Bristol at the weekend. I mean, you've only got to look at that Loughborough game initially, and to hold them to 10-7 up until the last kind of 5 minutes is a real credit to the girls and everything that we've put together in pre-season in particular. I think exactly what you've said there in terms of getting to know players and getting to know how people play and how people even just run different lines, and how people even take a few steps to kind of kick a ball, and how I suppose myself as a winger, how I run off different people will take time. And already in the first 3 games we've had actually a good few subs for different injuries and obviously COVID related isolation as well. So you've then got that extra layer of not only a new group, but a lot of changes kind of week to week, and sometimes last minute because of different issues. So yeah, look, I mean, every game you can see our systems are getting better and better, and we're definitely improving as a team, and I think the next few weeks are going to be really interesting for us. We'll have our first away game as well with Quins again, so that's a new experience as a club, just to travel together and to go to another club and another team and facility and see how we get on there, and then moving forward. So yeah, like, not the start that I think anyone would want, but I think we were realistic in terms of those games and what we wanted to achieve from them, and kind of how we're moving forward with it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. Amazing. Okay, and just moving on now to your sort of international career and that side of the coin. I mean, it was amazing that I found out recently that you only started playing rugby when you were 25. So yeah. Can you explain about your rugby journey? How, I mean, I was speaking to, ironically, I was speaking to Rachel Malcolm, the Scotland captain, who she was very similar in a sense. She always played hockey and then went on. So it seems like in female rugby, there's these gems of players that are found like quite late on. Yeah, what was your, how was your international journey and how did it start?
Yes, I suppose that's it. I've only been playing rugby since I was 25. I was a basketball player for 15 years, and I played internationally for 3 or 4 years underage as well, back for Ireland. But essentially the reason why I tried rugby and gave it a go, I moved to Milton Keynes to work as a nutritionist with British Badminton, and essentially there was nowhere close that I could play basketball with. And there was a girl in work, and she said, look, there's a local rugby team. I'm really keen to make new friends as well. Would you give it a go? And I said, yeah, 100%. My parents were always massive Leinster rugby fans and rugby fans. So there was always, rugby on the TV and on the radio. So we went down, the two of us, to Bletchley Ladies in Milton Keynes. I think we were playing in National Challenge 2 at the time, and oh, it was excellent. I just absolutely love it, and took like a duck to water. And they'll always joke about that first session, that first game that I ever played. I came on the wing actually, and I don't think anyone had actually seen me full blown sprinting. And I remember that some kick from our 10, and I kind of sprinted out of the line and kind of tackled the girl straight away. And that's kind of a story that's still being told to that day, where I don't think anyone kind of realized my pace or how I'd take to the game. And so I spent a year and a half then playing with Bletchley, and got a new role as nutritionist with British Cycling up here in Manchester. And I remember kind of looking on the RFU website and looking at the different clubs that were in the Northwest region, and kind of questioning to myself, could I play with this club or that club, or a championship? Is that too high? Should I really take kind of 3 leagues up? And then I looked within the league, and then I saw different clubs, and I said, look, could Waterloo have won it for the last 3 or 4 years? Can I take that big step? And I did. I gave it a go. A great club to be part of and take that step. And as you mentioned, they gave me that platform to then get part of the Irish team. So essentially I think it was August 2018, there was an Irish Exiles Talent ID Day that I went to, and I think it was down in Loughborough, and it was just a full day of training, and Adam Griggs, the Irish head coach, was there, and saw me play. I did pretty well then, and gave me my first shot at the Autumn International squad there in 2018, and have been part of the squad ever since.
Wow, that's incredible, because I think young people can sometimes think, oh, do I have to choose a sport quite early on in their lives? And like you were saying, you did basketball, don't play it anymore, but you obviously now rugby, and that's a huge part of your life. So that's really interesting. Okay, and obviously you just recently
on that. So basketball is one. You just have to look at the Irish team for kind of people who have transitioned from other sports. You not only have me, you've got Louise Galvin, who's just retired from the Sevens team. You have Aoife McDermott, you have Lindsay Peat, who's a amazing athlete in kind of all sports that she goes with. But I suppose Rachel Malcolm, who you mentioned, we actually did our masters together in Loughborough University, and she's come from hockey. So we actually know each other from 7 or 8 years ago. And I think that's amazing that in women's sport that you can do that. And once you do get to a certain age, and unfortunately with basketball, with myself, when I got to kind of the level of maybe playing for Ireland with under 18s or under 20s, the funding for senior Irish teams got cut. So there almost wasn't that development and that level. And I always kind of say I not regret, because I probably wouldn't be the player I am today, but I would have loved to have started rugby at a much younger age. And I actually talked to a young 8-year-old girl who's a friend of a friend this week, who's just started to play rugby, and I was talking about how I was almost jealous of her at 8 years of age starting to play rugby, and learning all the kind of techniques and how to tackle and how to pass. And I would have loved to have had that journey, but not taking away from the journey that I've already had.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I find it amazing. It's even with the interchange of positions within women's rugby, like you have so many people that have come from being a centre to then being a back row, and then they turn into a hooker. It's like amazing. And I think there's obviously less a wider range of body shapes and sizes than you see in the men's game. The women's game obviously has that to a degree as well, but it's so interesting. And like you were saying, is it Hannah Tyrrell, the Irish fly half? Wasn't she a Gaelic footballer?
Yeah, again, there's loads of Gaelic football. So Hannah Tyrrell, you're looking at Claire Keown as well, Lindsay Peat again, and all of those girls who have played kind of the top level of Gaelic football in Ireland. The top level you can play at, you could argue, in the world. Who are also playing international for rugby. You've got a few girls who have played international soccer as well. So Nicole Cronin, and again Lindsay Peat, who's a common one there, who have played kind of soccer for Ireland as well. So loads of transition. And I think that's more of a reflection of almost an all-round athlete in the female game, and how they can transition quite well in terms of kind of team-based sports in particular.
Yeah. And as a team within Ireland, I know you've had a lot of international camps recently. What have those international camps been like? I know you obviously had the game to prepare for against Italy. Unfortunately, your game against France was then cancelled within the Six Nations. But what was the kind of camp atmosphere like? And what did you make of your performance as a team against Italy?
Yeah, so we had kind of a few months of training then there in that lead into that Italy game. I think those first few weeks, you could just tell everyone was just chuffed to be back playing rugby, to be back in camp with the girls, training together, catching up about everything. And yeah, it was a great atmosphere to come back to and be part of. And then I suppose after those first few weeks, we properly started to switch on to focus on the following Six Nations games. And they've been excellent, to be honest. Like, again, how I describe it to kind of other nutritionists and people in kind of the elite sport world over here, is that kind of each year that I've been involved with, I'm heading into my third year now, we've taken kind of a step up in terms of our development as a team, in terms of the management, in terms of loads of different areas. And it's great to see and almost compare the environment and the training program that we have as part of the Irish team with kind of the elite level of British cycling and some of the other sports that I've been involved with as well. In terms of that lead-in, we set a target at the very beginning of the Six Nations at the start of 2020 of winning 3 home games. And we knew this was the final piece of that puzzle that we aimed for. So there was a lot of pressure, definitely, not only from that perspective, but also to be that first game within Ireland rugby, to get back to playing, almost a bit of, not of the pressure of the nation, but wanting to play well for that morale of Ireland and going through the pandemic as well. And we knew how kind of privileged and appreciative we are to be back playing international scene. So we had a really great lead up and loads of really intense camps and a lot of training. As you said, every weekend, kind of Friday till Sunday. Excellent to get that win against them. And I think we put in a really decent performance against them. And even at that, there's definitely certain areas that we know we could have done better and that we're definitely going to look to improve on over the next while. But a really good marker in the sand for all the training that we put through and lockdown and in the lead into it.